Shortly after the presentation about Sir Tobi's demo of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was published, a couple of people informed me about the existence of another one, this time with a channel named Gamestar Talk. On top of this, he also recently did a live stream of it alongside the art director, Mr. Hoschel. So we're going to take a look at both, and I'll share with you everything I've found. Their session was conducted in English, while Gamestar Talk's coverage is in German with machine translation available. Their links alongside everything else shown here can be found in the description. Alright, let's begin. Right off the bat, I would like to update you on how blocking melee attacks in KCD2 will probably work. Previously, I had an assumption that if we press block when the green shield icon pops up, it results in a normal one that eats up a bit of stamina. But if we wait until it has a glint on its back, a perfect block would happen with no energy cost. However, according to its mini tutorial panel shown during the live stream, how it works is more simplistic than anticipated, because it's clearly stated here that perfect blocks are carried out as long as we press the appropriate button after it appears. And we have plenty of time to do so, because this symbol shows up a few moments before an opponent attacks, which lasts up until the strike lands. With this in mind, perhaps the glinted shield icon might simply be an indicator for when we press the defend button. And more importantly, a perfect block can be considered as the new normal block because it's now easier to pull off. The only thing players need to focus on is the manner in which a riposte is carried out, since the slow motion effect during combat has been removed. In KCD1, when an opponent's strike has been perfect blocked, what happens is there's a slight delay before they can do another one, but we can immediately respond with a riposte afterwards, while at the same time our opponent can try stopping it with a perfect block of their own. This quick exchange between attack and defense is the foundation of KCD1's melee combat system. And I don't see any sign of it being any different for the sequel. It's just a little bit faster. Sir Tobi did say that the direction of our strikes matter, implying our chances of landing a hit is better if we attack away from where the opponent's weapon is. Unfortunately, there's no way to validate it until the game is released. And it's hard to take such a statement at face value when the master strikes that Menhard did during the live stream, for example, came from attacks which he repelled from an offside. However, he did confirm that not everyone will know how to pull off advanced counters. And this brought up an interesting quirk about ripostes and combos. The peasants Henry fought in the official showcase never once did a master strike nor a riposte. Meanwhile, experienced fighters like Menhard, who's proficient at perfect blocking, would still occasionally make mistakes. Due to how easy it is for Henry to pull off a PB, it means the player has a defensive advantage during melee exchanges, because it's only a matter of time before an opponent gets hit, unless one of our ripostes gets master striked first. In addition, remember that a perfect block is one of the ways combination attacks can be stopped. Therefore, foes would find them very challenging to finish, unless Henry gets blindsided, or perhaps if we hold down the block button, allowing multiple hits to be landed on purpose. So my assumption regarding combos is that our chances of completing them depends on how powerful the opponent is, while enemies in general will have a much harder time to do so. In relation to this, I previously posed a theory that low-angle attacks are going to be interlinked with combinations, and there's now solid proof of it. At one point during the live stream, we can see two of them for polearms, which do as their names suggest. Apart from this, Sir Tobi also mentioned that one of the unarmed combos is going to be for disarming an opponent, which got me very excited because such kind of moves do exist in historical combat manuals, and I can't wait to see how they're implemented in the game. But the most important one we need to talk about is regarding thrust attacks, because it's now officially confirmed that the 6 o'clock position of our combat star is reserved for such kind of attack, directed at the chest area, which causes a potential issue. If KCD2's armor system will be similar to the first game, it means taking down enemies protected by plated gear using a sword will be more difficult, because the fastest way to do it is to land thrusts on their head. While there seems to be a longsword specific combo which leads to that kind of strike, it's only a partial solution because finishing them is uncertain. Thankfully, we're now allowed to equip up to 4 weapons, so we'll just have to make sure one of them is a mace and bash our way to victory. This idea behind weapon slots reminded me of a previous question, which had something to do with Henry's movement in relation to his equipment. I wanted to know if occupying all 4 spaces would simultaneously affect our character's speed, and we now have an answer for it. At one point in the Gamestar Talk video, when Sir Tobi described quick swapping, we can see here with this light crossbow and bolts on the belt, the speed value is at 20. But when he affixed the sword on top of it, this number has risen to 22, and it changes depending on which one is highlighted, indicating that only the current weapon equipped is what's calculated for movement speed. I brought this up to your attention because there seems to be another new trick we might be able to do. That is, if our character can move fast enough. One of the biggest changes to melee combat in KCD2 is that fighters can now freely move around, in comparison to the first game, where it seems like they're tethered to each other. Because of this, it led me to speculate if Agile character builds might now be more formidable. And there seems to be another hint for it when Henry fought the 2 bandits. At one point during their face-off, the opponent directly in front started to back away while Sir Tobi gave chase and tried to land a slash from above. Even though we can only attack from 4 different directions, the hitbox is still very tight, and in this case, due to their continuous movement, Sir Tobi miscalculated the distance, causing the cut to just miss its mark because his opponent's upper body is tilted at an angle. As a result, the bandit's counterattack, which immediately followed, landed cleanly. So if our character can move quick enough during melee combat, there's a good chance we might be able to avoid hits without dodging. And if we could develop a sense for all of the weapon types' attack ranges, we could use that instinct to bait our opponent into striking first, and land a counter shortly afterwards. When done correctly, this sequence will happen so fast that our opponent won't be able to defend. That's the theory anyway. Before we try out this potentially powerful move, it's worth noting that light armor builds come at a great risk, mainly because attack and defense are both dependent on stamina. Just like in KCD1, padded clothing provides basic protection without slowing down our character much, but getting hit still means taking HP damage, which reduces our energy pool along with it. And if you've seen the Gamestar Talk video, which demonstrates the early portion of KCD2, you'll notice that managing it during combat is of utmost importance. One of the things we must not do is rely on normal blocks by holding down the button, due to a stamina penalty for each absorbed blow. And if the enemy attempts to land an entire combo, it's a surefire way to quickly drain Henry's energy. Once that happens, there's really not much we can do other than to back away and wait for it to recharge. But, as pointed out in a previous video, there's a delay before it starts to recover, and trying to normal block an attack without stamina results in a direct hit. So using perfect blocks will be the way to go, and since this kind of defense doesn't eat up stamina, it still works even if Henry is completely exhausted, as shown here. The only time a normal block would probably be useful is for defending against attacks off-screen, because the combat star momentarily disappears as we switch between enemies. But still, I would probably only use it to give our character a chance to step back and reorient himself. If you've played KCD1, you'll also know that stamina management is not limited to melee combat. Using ranged weapons also require us to be wary of that gauge. So far, we've only seen light crossbows in action, and even though it was only briefly demonstrated, there were a couple of details which verify what we've previously observed about them. One thing which stood out surrounding KCD2's crossbows was the continuous stamina drain while aiming down, which is probably put in place to raise the challenge of using them. First observed in the official showcase, there was a slim chance that maybe its energy depletion is connected to a relevant perk, but as it turns out, we have further evidence that this is the default behavior of such weapon type. As expected, light crossbows in particular are not that powerful, but at least its sway pattern seems to be confined to a small circular zone. In addition, we have solid proof that they can be rearmed while moving, a feature we definitely won't be able to do with the heavier variant that uses a windlass. They also seem to share a similarity with bows from KCD1 regarding reload times, which depends on their power rating. The decorated hunting crossbow shown in the official showcase has an attack power of 200, and its reload time is around 5 seconds, while the ordinary hunting crossbow shown in the Gamestar Talk video is a little bit weaker at 180, but it can be rearmed in 4 seconds. I won't be surprised if many of us choose a crossbow as their primary ranged weapon, but don't count out bows just yet, because there seems to be a new perk that could potentially make them more powerful, and it's called Salvo. So we'll either get to see Henry launch multiple arrows at a time, or in short succession. Either way, this will be very fascinating to see. It's a good thing that Sir Tobi and Mr. Hoshel decided to live stream the demo. If I understand correctly, they're planning to do another one, so I'll be waiting for that. In the meantime, if you'd like to check out the earlier analysis videos, where many of our hypotheses still hold up, their links along with everything else referenced here are in the description below.